Is Force of Nature The Dry 2? Does it reach the heights of The Last Stop in Yuma County? First off, I did a rewatch of The Dry. Love that film so much. And then I did back to back. After watching The Dry, then I watched Force of Nature, The Dry 2. So I can't wait to hear what Bruce Purkey, who's also seen this movie, thinks about this film. Here's the plot summary. After receiving a distressing call from an informant, federal agents Aaron Falk and Carmen Cooper head to the Giralong Ranges to investigate the whereabouts of their whistleblower slash informant. That person is Alice. She is played by Anna Torv. So what happens with Alice is she's going to leak some really important information for this big corporation she's working for. She has a reason for being a whistleblower. She goes on a company retreat in the middle of this Giralong Ranges. They get lost, and she's with maybe four or five other women, fellow coworkers, and they get lost in the middle of the forest. It's really beautiful to look at when you're not in that area, but it's dangerous when you're out there all alone with no one to actually guide you. So a big part of the movie is a flashback on Alice's adventures and trials with her coworkers in the middle of the forest. And the present day, you see federal agents Aaron Falk and Carmen Cooper trying to figure out what's going on in the forest. Now, Carmen Cooper, she has played by Jacqueline McKenzie. She has a supporting role in this film. She's good in this, but it's mainly told from the POV of the whistleblower, Anna Torv, with the flashbacks. But mainly, this is an Aaron Falk movie. Aaron Falk is played by Eric Bana. Aaron Falk was the lawman at the beginning of The Dry, and The Dry had a lot of flashbacks, and it dealt with how he is trying, how the memories of his past affected his investigation of the present. Same aesthetic with this one. With Aaron Falk, he actually has a connection to this forest area because he had an experience, very tragic experience, years back with his parents in the same area. So if you enjoy The Dry, where you see a lot of flashbacks and then it goes into the present, and you like that aesthetic, and you like Eric Bana as Aaron Falk, I think this is a very good follow-up. Not as great as The Dry because Bruce, I don't know if you remember The Dry you remember portions of The Dry. The Dry to me is like a 4.5 star film, close to perfect. It's one of these movies that I hope down the line I'm gonna get on Blu-ray. I definitely want to get Force of Nature, The Dry 2 on Blu-ray as well. The only thing is, this movie is more of Falk investigating these people. The first one is Falk pretty much kind of front and center. There is an investigation, but you get to see more of his life. Eh, But yeah, this one's still a very, very good movie. I highly recommend it if you're a fan of The Dry. These are based on the novels by Jane Harper. She is a co-writer in this film with director Robert Connolly. Connolly also directed The Dry. Bruce Purkey, your thoughts on Force of Nature, The Dry 2?
Yeah, I liked it enough, but I think you kind of identified some of the problem here for me compared to the dry. The dry, I think of it like he's involved actively in investigating and figuring out what's going on and going from place to place and talking to people and figuring stuff out, right? And this one's much more of like kind of your classic who done it, although it's a who
Yes.
she's missing, but essentially, they all go out in this retreat hike thing. All of them stumble out of the woods except for Alice, and now we have to backtrack and figure out where she's at. And essentially, Falk and his cohort, which doesn't do anything in this movie, really, pretty much.
Right.
Falk, Falk is pretty much like an inspector or like Jessica Fletcher or something. Just shows up and like, okay, let's talk to people, and then we're going to see flashbacks. So he's really mostly inert. He's mostly just hanging out at this lodge, talking to people, and then the whole story is what happens to them, which isn't terrible,
Right.
but
In
it's
fairness, Falk as a kid gets more action in this movie because you see
yes.
Falk as a child going through the same forest while he is inert present day.
Yes, and to me there's a loss of using his character really to great effect. I think that you kind of miss that, even though the story itself, it almost is like he almost doesn't have to be in the story. They could just make the story the story. He's there because he's kind of the connecting tissue of the series of stories. I understand that. I also would say, like Jessica Fletcher, does he have personal connections to every place he has to go and investigate something? Does that just happen to him? Like, luckily,
I think that was cool. I can understand that. I can understand that.
the next one he's going to be out on the coast someplace, and he's going to have some traumatic event from his childhood just happen to be at the same place. That was kind of a little bit ridiculous, but whatever. I think people who like traditional style mystery-ish sort of crime detective-y sort of stories, I think are going to have enough here to keep them going and keep them interested to enjoy it. If that's not really your deal, it's probably not going to move the needle much for you. Like, I would say I'm a mild recommend, but it doesn't give me as much as I wanted. I want to see him doing stuff, not just questioning the next person who wanders in.
Right. I will say it's not as good as The Dry. That said, I forgot to mention the Anna Torv story. I disagree with you slightly on this. I found her story to be good enough for me to engage. What happened to her? Is she alive? Is she dead? Where is this information? Will it ever get out? Is she going to succeed as a whistleblower? Who among the women are they? Do they have ulterior motives? I found the mystery, that mystery to be fine, but it's just that for me, the Dry movies should be about Falk.
Yeah,
And there's less of
exactly.
Falk here. And yeah,
We kind of don't give a fuck about.
I gave more of a fuck with the Dry original film, but I still really enjoyed Force of Nature, the Dry too. Yes, Bruce.
Did you also agree there's this whole subplot about this possible old serial killer that used to be in the area, which is almost
Right.
goes nowhere? And
Yes.
you don't introduce a
What is that
unsolved
called? Is that misapplied red herring? Is that or what is it?
maybe like you have an unsolved serial killer. I mean, you can't introduce that into a crime movie and not have some kind of resolution on that.
Right. That's very
I
interesting.
mean,
Yeah. So that's a threat that
Zodiac.
was.
Well, that's the whole point of the story.
Oh,
Like, you don't have like a
but
subplot.
Zodiac.
It's like it's like having Silence of the Lambs and Buffalo Bill's there too, but you're gonna just kind of at the end just forget about Buffalo Bill. Yeah, it was just gone.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Okay, so Force of Nature, the Dry 2 for me. This is a strong recommend. I enjoyed the story. I can't wait for the Dry 3. I'm fine with Buck going to certain locations and having a personal connection. It's me. Bruce is correct. I am a fan of these detective-y whodunit-y type of movies. So for me, 4 stars for Force of Nature, the Dry 2. Yes, Bruce, your rating.
I'm probably 3 stars. I honestly think I think this is more suited. This should be like limited series. Like
I'm not
I
gonna
could
argue.
see
Not gonna argue with
Netflix or
you.
one of them picking up a Fox series, and each season could be 6 or 7 episodes of him solving whatever, and they could flesh these things out and really make it a lot of fun. So one situation where I prefer, I think, a season versus a movie if they're going to make the movies like this, because I don't think they have enough time in this to really get into the meat of everything.
Okay.
So like Kolchak the Night Falker.
Yes.
All right, very good. Here it comes. 3 stars for Bruce Purkey. 4 stars for me. Again, Force of Nature, The Dry 2 in theaters and everywhere you rent movies starting May 10th